everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Cloud-Based Mayhem. Spring has certainly arrived in full in the Northern Hemisphere. Some big flights going down in Europe last week or so. First 300 open distance and a whole bunch of big triangles, snow on the ground. Beautiful, inspiring, and encouraging, hopefully, for the season that is headed our way. Hopefully putting COVID in the rearview mirror here. So that's exciting. The music you just heard at the top of the show has been provided by a friend of mine, Thad Spencer, a very good pilot. He's got a music production company and writes all kinds of stuff for tons of different commercial and movies and tons of different things. He's also a musician, and he's provided this for us for into the future. So let us know what you think. We're pretty excited about this. It'll make our music aspect of the show much, much easier going forward. Other housekeeping, the book is selling really well, and there's about another week and a half of pre-sales available, which gets you free shipping. And then after that, it'll be a little bit more expensive, or you'll have to get it through your local school, which we encourage. There's 10 or so schools around the world that have a whole bunch shipping out to them now. Everything got delayed with that huge container ship getting stuck in the Suez for over a week. I don't know if ours were on that or if that was just part of the delay, but you might have seen that newsletter come out from cross country. That was kind of amusing. So things are a little delayed there, but I've got mine copy, just arrived yesterday on my desk, and you might have seen a bunch of the folks that are in the book that provided so much to it. They've also been putting out some really fun posts about it. So it came out great. It's a beautiful piece of work that cross country put together and tons of good advice. So go to xcmag.com/shop to find it and get your pre-order in now, and you'll get it here very, very shortly, as soon as that bottleneck in the Suez clears. My guest today is Urs Haari, Swiss legend. He's been at this game for over 30 years, got into sailplanes when he was really young after watching his father fly RCs and models and that kind of thing. And legend, multiple world championship podiums and Europeans and World Cups. And we get into a couple of pretty scary incidences he had, including landing in a lake in Verbier, where he spends a lot of his time, and getting away from the sport for a while, coming back to it. He is also the head of High Adventures. They invented the Beamer Rescue, and really got to go check out the show notes to this one, because he's got a bunch of videos of him testing reserves and cutaway systems and disabling the glider. I learned a ton just from watching these, how reserves work, how they deploy, the speed. He does it all over the ground in a place where there's lots of homes and power lines and that kind of thing. So really valuable there, those videos are. So most of the time he's doing his testing, but he gets out for 5, 6, 7 XC flights a year, and in that time has won, I think, 5 now Swiss Challenge Cups. So this is the XC Challenge Cup, and that's in the sport class. He now does that on the B because he just doesn't have the hours anymore to compete on the high aspect gliders. And so, but that's a heck of an achievement with the Swiss. So this guy has been at it and done really well for an awfully long time. There's lots of stories about Urs racing over here in the early days in the Owens and stuff, and we had a blast with this talk. Lots here. I think you're going to enjoy it, and check out the show notes. There's also a lot more there. And if you haven't had a chance yet, go back and listen to the episode with Robbie Whittle. I've gotten a ton of feedback on this one. That was a precious talk, and we both really enjoyed it. And we've had some fun chats since then, just with all the feedback. So if you missed that one, make sure you check it out. A lot of fun. Today's top of the show tip comes from Kevin Brooker, a sailplane pilot we've had on the show and a regular listener, who reached out to Nick and I after the show we recently did together, specifically about one of my responses, which was basically more hours. And he pointed out very accurately that all hours are not the same. And he's been kind of a student of how the brain learns and how we better ourselves, but specifically how the brain is geared towards fear and stress and being in difficult situations. And so he reached out to us with some really interesting thoughts, and Nick sent him a microphone, and they sat down for well over an hour to discuss this and many other things, which was fascinating. And so we're going to use just a couple of quick hits from that talk in this top of the show tip here. The first is on how we need to approach sledders and how valuable they can really be. And certainly as we get better, we tend to blow the sledder off. And Kevin has a pretty good case for why we shouldn't do that, and how sledders can be incredibly valuable. And the second is wing choice, and why a really good pilot on a lower end wing will outclass a pilot on a hotter wing who's not as good. And so this is really valuable information on choosing a wing. Enjoy.
We'll start off with this idea that you've said that not all days are great flying days. Some days are sledder days, and most people miss those. Can you talk a little bit about what someone could do on a sledder day?
Yeah, I think sledder days are where some of the largest learning opportunities come in, because you're flying and everything that wing does is from your input. And it's a really great time to learn the wing. You can see how your input affects it without having the wind or lift or anything bump it around. So whatever situation you end up in is caused by you. And it's a great time also to learn how to get off the ground, learn how to get on the ground, and then play with the wing in the air. See how, applying different control inputs makes the wing react. And you're gathering a ton of information that's going to become valuable later on when things are bouncing around. So as you slow the wing down, how does the handling come as you get closer and closer to a stall? Does it get mushy? Does it do something unexpected? And without something like the weather giving you input, you can really start to feel that. So as you're flying in more stout conditions, that same idea is the wing might start to feel kind of mushy, and you're like, oh, on a dead sledder day, this is how it felt as it was approaching a condition which was not favorable. So you can pick up a lot of that information, which again allows you to use more of the 100% of the performance of that wing. And you're more in touch with feeling how it's going, so you're not worrying about it as much, And again, there'll be different inputs, but when the wing feels mushy and doesn't want to do its thing because you've upset it, it feels mushy. It doesn't matter if you're going really fast or really slow. You'll feel that same, it feels unhappy is probably the best way to put it. And it's also a great time to start calibrating your glide computer. There's no wind, there's no lift to screw it up. So if you're, getting 5-to-1 or 6-to-1 in any condition, it's a good time to actually see, I should be able to go from here to here and I should lose 500 feet. Did it work out? Do I lose more turn? You're always going to be going down. Do I lose more energy circling to the left or to the right? And if you do, why? What do you do that's different? We all probably have a preferred direction to turn in. And you can start to learn all these things. So that gives you, again, picking up little pieces of performance as you go. And it's a time where you can be more spot on with landings, put the thing right down where you want to put it, and, really learn the subtleties of how it feels. I know in the sailplane, it would yaw around when you'd get in lift and you'd get in different things, and just going really slow, you get to see that. And, how does the control input make it do things? And I learned a lot about how the flight computer works to where I could start to trust it, not quite blindly, but a dead day is a great day to learn about how you interact with the wing, because there's nothing there that affects that other than you.
Love it. Love it. Okay. You've talked about this, or you mentioned it a couple times, but I'd like to jump into it further. Is that pilots choose wings in order to protect themselves or to impress others? They want the speed or the safety or whatever they want. You've mentioned this idea of kind of the being able to use some percentage of the wing. Can you go through how you think about using the percentage of the wing in your skill versus the wing's ability?
Yeah. So there's in the general bell curve, of the flight envelope, right? There's a certain area where it's pretty easy to fly, and in a good day, it does what it's going to do. And this is going to be a little bit rambly. So if you put two different pilots in the same aircraft on the same wing, you're going to have two different results. And, becoming comfortable with what the glider does is really important, because when you get into a realm that you don't understand the input the glider is giving you, or something feels different, we get nervous and we get scared, and fear is there. It's always going to be there. And we will revert back to an area of comfort. And a lot of times is understanding what that wing is doing lets you stay in that slightly discomfort zone a little bit more. I'm not saying a risky zone or anything like that, but something where the glider is doing something you're not used to. It might be, flying slower, or some input it's getting, and you need to squeeze that little bit of input. You're squeezing a little bit of extra performance out of that wing. How it goes faster when you're in a still day. How does putting the speed bar on affect things? How does it affect the way it feels? How does it affect the way it turns? How does it affect a lot of things? And the time when you have to go fast, if you're just not used to doing that, just in general, when it's flat, on a stronger day, when you may want to move fast in the sink, right? You want to get between the lift, from one lift source to the next, as quickly as possible. Even though the sink rate is higher, you still have to get used to understanding that you're going to get there. And if you get nervous, we tend to slow down. So we stay in the sink longer and we sink out faster. And it's really understanding how that aircraft flies so that you can maximize every piece of it and get everything out of it. That's within your comfort zone. And some people are willing to push closer and closer and closer to the edge, where it doesn't want to fly well, and it's discovering where's that place for you so you can get the most out of it. And even a lesser aircraft will be flown better by somebody who's super comfortable with it than somebody who's not as competent on a higher performance rig.
And for now, enjoy this great talk with Urs Haari. Urs, what a pleasure. I was really excited. I got the press release from Till about yet another Swiss Cup victory for yourself. And about the same time, my buddy and ski buddy and flying partner, and I know someone well, back from your Worlds days and all that, Nate Scales, he's my neighbor. And he reached out at the same time. He said, "You got to talk to Urs. He's been at this forever. You got to talk to Urs. Did you see he won the Swiss Cup yet again? And he hardly ever gets a chance to fly." And so I'm humbled and excited to talk to you. And I thought a really fun place to start in your email kind of introduction that kind of lays out your 30 years of flight. You talk about your work with High Adventure. This is your company. You invented the Beamer, which I didn't know. And you sent me a bunch of links to your video work, which is phenomenal. I don't know how you do that camera work when you're throwing reserves and all this stuff. It's really well done. So we'll have all those links in the show notes. But I wanted to start with your reserve work. I realize we're starting at the opposite end. That's very much current, what we're doing now. And then we'll dive back into the history of it. But tell me about High Adventure and throwing your reserve. I want to just get people more excited about throwing their reserves, because you obviously do it all the time.
Yeah. Hi, Gavin. It's an honor to me talking to you. Thank you very much for the opportunity. We found High Adventure in the early 1994, and we still distribute Nova paragliders and some other brands. But at that time, we also worked already on the first Rogallo reserve parachutes. We received one from our manufacturer in Korea, and those were some chutes. They were jumping off the airplanes at that time. Between 1917 and 1980, they had a short period where they used Rogallo chutes between the round ones and the square canopies now. And that's how everything began.
Mm. And and again, I want to really encourage people to see these videos, but you're doing all your testing over the ground, and you've got amazing systems, these cutaway systems. And I wanted to just talk about how you've developed your process for testing, and what should the listeners know about throwing their reserve? Because you're obviously about as comfortable with doing it as a very, very seasoned acro pilot. I loved watching them. They're very educational.
Yeah, well, at the beginning, we started to test everything above water for sure, because we were not experienced at all. And then when the Rugala shoots came, when we started to test them, it was so much easier. The sink rate was much better, much lower. And so we started to do tests above ground. Also, preventing the fabric and the lines from shrinking. And we didn't lose that much time in between the different tests. We didn't have to wait until the canopy dried out again, and for repacking and all these things. So we were pretty fast doing the tests with this first Rugala shoot, because we just we went up and down. We did even a few tests per day, and we were really very fast with this. And then later on, when we started to test regular reserve parachutes, like hemispherical ones, round ones, and even now in the last few years, the square shoots, we started to test them also, in the winter time. We landed on the ground, but I'm getting older, man, and it hurts. 5.5 meters per second. If you hit the
Yeah.
deck, that it's not so nice, especially if you do it once or twice a day. So I started, thinking about a system where we can use the advantage of the steerable Rugala reserve parachutes, which have bigger surfaces, lower sink rates, and you can avoid flying into an obstacle. I just started to combine the experience I've made during skydiving. I was a skydiver for a short time, and I knew this three ring systems, and the cutaway system of your main chute if you had a problem when you had to pull the reserve. And that's how we finally ended up with this design, and it works really well.
Can you tell me, let's clarify, are there misconceptions about the Regalo? For example, I have always been told that, if you're flying in a comp and you've got two reserves, maybe have your Regalo as your primary and a square or round as your secondary. And then let's talk about the difference between square and round and your preferred reserve. But I have been told that if you're quite low, to not go with the Regalo, go with one of the others, because you're not going to be able to get it into steering mode fast enough. Is that a misconception?
Yes, for sure. Because the way we designed our Rogalo reserve parachutes is that you don't have to steer them. So they come in a pre-braked brake setting. So steering is just that's it's more like the freestyle program. That's how I call it in my safety clinics when I teach really beginners for their first time when they throw a reserve. When they show up with a Rogala reserve, and they also use um, cutaway systems, or like quick out carabiners and all this kind of stuff. And I never let them do uh, to cut away their glider before they are not in the situation to fly combined or connected to their main paraglider. Because what this is a misunderstanding, because Most of people think I have a steerable reserve now, and if something happens, they 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 throw their reserve, and the first thing is they focus completely on their cutaway system. They don't look at their paraglider. Um, they don't take care about their paraglider, because sometimes it's really important that you prevent it from still from flying or from disturbing. So the procedure is always the same. I tell them that they have to prevent their paraglider from flying before they do something else. If they have their paraglider under control, then they can try to steer. They don't have to cut away. This is also something people didn't understand at all. The ones who never tried this before. The focus always has to be on the paraglider first. If you're under a regular parachute, reserve chute, a square one or a round one, it doesn't matter. All you want to do is bring the system to under control, right?
Yeah,
So,
and
so, so,
you're doing that in your videos. It looks like just incredibly easy. I mean, you reach up and you grab, your B's or your C's, whatever's the last cascade and the wing you're flying, and just pull it down. And it's often just and then you just hold them with one hand. I've noticed it looks very easy to just kill the glider.
yeah, that's if you do it, you are prepared, and you know exactly what will come, or you think that this could come next. So you are prepared. I mean, if it's in a real situation, if you're under stress, if there's a lot of valley wind or strong thermals, whatever, a lot of adrenaline. Sometimes it's difficult, and to be honest, if you have a huge twist in your system,
Mm.
if your risers are twisted up 4 or 5 times, or the lines are twisted up 4 or 5 times, then it's not that easy anymore. I have videos where one can see that I couldn't release the glider. I was testing a prototype, so I had to release my glider because it was overground, plenty of obstacles around, power lines, and all these things. So, you know, that's when you need a cutaway knife. I just cut off everything. But normally, this is to come back to your first question is. Um, the procedure is the same for everybody. You have to throw the reserve, and then you have to check that it's open. That's the next checkpoint. When it's open, you take care about your paraglider. So doesn't matter if you have a steerable or a non-steerable reserve. The good thing about our Rogallo chutes is that they open very fast because the packing is completely different, their form is different, so they inflate much faster, and they have a much bigger surface area. So they are 30% bigger than the modern reserve parachutes. So that's for me personally the two strongest arguments for that kind of design. And that's a very important argument if you are close to the ground, fast opening, and the larger surface makes the descent rate decreasing, smaller. And then, if you have time, if you are trained, I mean, you gotta have to try this at least once, so you will see how it works. You just grab with one hand one brake handle, and you pull it, and since it's pre-braked, the opposite side is still under brakes, so you can steer with one hand right or left by going off the brake, then it pulls to the other side. By pulling down the brake, it pulls to the opposite side. The cutaway system takes another action, one more action, and you have to be really trained in this to then, after you prevent your glider from flying, you have got everything under control to release the main glider with quick out carabiners or something. It's a good option if you are high, or I would say even in a competition. I would not fly in a competition with 30 other pilots in the same thermal. The risk of a tangle is pretty high. So there, I would definitely recommend to fly with a cutaway system. So if you get tangled to another paraglider pilot, you just, cut off, goodbye, and you just use the full potential of a steerable reserve. But everything before is not focused on the cutaway system. That's my tip, to everybody.
Yeah, so there's two things here with the regalo, because in one of your videos you showed that you wrapped up, you pulled out the regalo and you just had it in your hand and you twisted it a bunch of times and then you threw it, and then you just steered it with one, and that's not something I ever knew about. So I want to make sure everybody understands that you can just steer it with one toggle, and then the other is, what about? It sounds like if it's in the braked position, will it not turn down? Because I've heard, okay, the problem with regalos, if there's a lot of wind, is they can turn downwind and you can start accelerating beyond what if you don't have it in steering mode, it can go downwind and go too fast. So that sounds like another misconception. If it's in the braked, if it's packed correctly and it's braked, it's just basically coming down like a square.
Correct. What happens quite often, when I do my tests, just next to the company, it's in a small valley. From noon, we have a pretty strong valley wind when we do tests, and when I test Rogallo shoots. When you have your main paraglider under control, you just drag it behind you, because the forward speed is so little. When we found out during the last few years that the difference in forward speed of a square or a square round canopy compared to our big Rogallo shoots is like 3 to 4 kilometers an hour. It's really just a bit higher. But when you drag your paraglider behind you, this is like a spinnaker. Does that sound familiar to you?
Yeah, sure. I'm a sailor.
Yeah,
of course.
So it's like a spinnaker. It turns you around. So all those stories that it turns you automatically with the wind, it's just not true. We just make a completely different experience with that. If your glider is connected to you, it's a big resistance, like a spinnaker, and it pulls you around. It pulls you actually into the wind. If you disconnect your main glider, then you have 2 brake lines. If you steer, you decide where you're going to land. If you don't do anything, you might end up flying with the wind for sure. That can happen, but you still have more options compared to a regular reserve.
What do you personally fly with when you're going XC? What's your kit? What's your harness, and what are your reserves?
I'm flying pod harness from Woody Valley, an XR7, and my primary reserve is Beamer 3 Lite, the big one. We're flying in the Alps, so the chances that you might have a problem in high altitude is is bigger. So I recommend to all those pilots flying in high altitude to really go for a large surface reserve parachute, because sink rate will increase with altitude. And the backup reserve is a Pentagon, a smaller one because of weight and the volume. It's a Pentagon for 100 kilos.
Okay. Tell me about sink rate. That's an important one. I think with hike and fly becoming such the rage and really, really light gear, I think many people maybe are compromising quite a bit on safety. I mean, I know all of my buddies in the X Alps, we all do this, but consciously, you know, we've all got the lightest round you can possibly get, and you know, but the sink rate is pretty high, and when you get up, what is the number, the magic number where you can really start getting hurt? I've always been told it's 6.
Well, that's a difficult question, because it depends a lot of the terrain where you hit the deck. You know, if it's a steep grass alpine meadow, you just walk away with 6 meters per second. But if you hit a rocky face, you know, or a cliff or something, no good news. So, you know, the thing is, the chutes, the reserve parachutes, when they are tested, those 5.5 meters per second, that's always calculated on sea level.
Right.
So if you have a canopy tested for, like, let's say 5.5 meters per second, and it allows you to carry, it's been certified with 120 kilos. It's an easy calculation to find out hook-in weight, like on 3,000 or 2,000 meters. With the same sink rate, you can hook in around 90 kilos. So you are already 30 kilos under the limit, and you still sink with 5.5 meters per second. If there is no wind, if there are no thermals, that's important information.
Yeah, right.
And so that's the point. You know, if you guys during the X Alps, if you're really going to the limit, if you have a sketch in an altitude of 2,000 or 3,000 meters, you got to have a chance to land on a really steep meadow. Otherwise, you are probably out of business for that race.
Yeah. Something's gonna snap or break or certainly get awful sore.
Yeah. And you know, 5.5 meters per second. I did it quite often when I tested those kind of reserves. You know, I saw on the Vario, it's 5.3, 5.4. It's no problem. The drift is okay. There is hardly no wind. I will land on a flat area and a clean area. There are no obstacles around. So I just save me the packing from the Rogallo system. So I'll just land on the prototype. And, you know, when I was younger, it was no problem. I just, you know, it hurt a little bit. The muscles were a little bit tight the next day. But now I did it 2 or 3 years ago. And I had to visit the chiropractor the next day. So it really hurt. You know, I really hurt myself. Nothing was broken, but I had problems with my back, with my neck, and I think that's just to give you an idea about 5.5, or if I land under a Rogallo, it's 3.5, 3.7, and it's a huge difference.
That's a huge difference. I can say that from my own experience, and you have much, much more, but it is really a huge difference. And it's, I think the PLF and all these kind of things are really important, but you're often in these weird situations where, doing a proper PLF is kind of tricky. Stuff's batting around, and there's, you're either oscillating or, something is going on. But I do really appreciate the cutaway remark, because it seems like, and you've got more experience certainly than I do, but it seems like the accidents these days in comps are coming more and more from mid-airs than they are from, back in the day it was gliders blowing up, and they don't really blow up anymore. Certainly they get in trouble, as always, but it seems like a lot of the real tragic accidents are happening from mid-airs. And if with cutaways, I've only ever used them with acro, and I've known I've needed to make that switch. But I'm glad you said that, because your videos make it real clear that that's an awful nice way to go. You just pump, it's gone, and here you go. You're under your nice Rogallo, and you can steer it in.
Yeah, and even I think all those guys trying to set new world records, or even for us when we land in a steep valley, and there's still, if you land too early and there's still strong valley wind, or as I said, the guys in Brazil, when they fly with 60, 70 or 80 kilometers an hour of wind, if you bomb out right after takeoff, it's not always so easy to get stopped afterwards.
Yeah, I spent a few weeks in Texas this summer trying to break the world record with Donizete and Cody and a few other really good pilots, and we had some real interesting landings. It's all cactus and mesquite and stuff you don't want to get stabbed into.
Exactly.
And of course, all the roads are perpendicular to the wind. Perpendicular to the wind. They're not parallel with the wind, so you really had to stab it in and be good at getting that thing down quick, or you were flying yeehaw through the mesquite.
Yeah. Gavin, just to come back just quickly on this reserve discussion. I think all kind of different systems. We have all the modern reserves. They are working very well. The systems out there, they are good. What I quite often see in my clinics, or when we talk to people having a crash or a serious accident, what I always learn is that, or recommend, it's rather a recommendation after all these experiences, that people just don't take enough care of their complete system. And I highly recommend to everybody to do at least once an opening, to see and to feel how it is under reserve. Because if you have a serious problem up there, and the time is running, if you're close to the ground, there is no room for taking decisions for too long time. It's a procedure which should come from you deep inside. It should be in your awareness, or you're in your subconscious, and every single move should be in there, programmed in your muscles, in your subconscious. Like the skydivers, they practice this. I miss this in our scene. People, quite a lot of people, they don't know how they should really do the whole procedure, and if they're under stress, they won't know how to.
Yeah, I don't know if you've been following Matt Wilkes. Has a group of, they've been doing a lot of simulations and studies the last couple of years with reserves, and not so much this reserve over that reserve, but just uh, put pilots in stress in the simulator and see what happens. And there's a pretty high number of people that never get to it.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's real fascinating, this freeze or flight syndrome, and how people react under stress and when fear is involved, and just not being able to get to the handle. The brain and the hand don't link up, and if you don't have it as an automatic, I mean, I think this is one of the things that the acro pilots just really have down, because they throw it so much. And like watching your videos, to me, it's just an encouragement to do it, because clearly it works and it's not that stressful. And if you have that kind of muscle memory, I've been encouraging people on the show. We've been talking about this quite a bit. It's just, every time you go fly, make a habit of that. Do it with your right hand, do it with your left hand, come up with a system. So when you're suddenly in some kind of weird, SIV situation or cascade, it's not something you have to really think through. It's just an automatic. You just go do it.
Exactly. And Matt did really a brilliant job with his work. That was
That's terrific.
Hopefully an eye opener for a lot of pilots out there.
Yeah, no, it's terrific. Well, don't let me abandon this subject if you have more to say, but I would love to dive into your history. And I thought, you've done this terrific job of, your email was great. I've read it several times now. Fascinating history, and I thought I'd just let you tell it as you like. But if there's more to say on the reserves, let's not leave that subject. But if we've said enough, then let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on to the other stuff.
Okay. Yeah, your dad was sounding like he was pretty critical in you learning how to do this. When you say he worked at the local gliding group, was he an RC pilot as well, or were we talking sailplanes?
He was an RC pilot before. That's how everything began. Yes.
There's so many of the kind of real legend pilots we've had on the show came from RCs. What is it about? It seems like they just have you're definitely learning something, even from just watching RC planes, that becomes part of your skill repertoire. It seems like.
Yeah, I mean, flying is a fascination, and if you get into contact with it so early, when you're a kid, when you're very young, you're out there, you're in the nature, and at that time when we were there on the slopes, there were no handies, nothing, no mobile phones, so we were not looking into a screen at the screen.
Yeah.
We were observing the gliders. We were helping them how to launch, or we brought them back when they landed somewhere else. And you look at the birds, you look at how they fly around. You make your own um, paper airplanes, and I think that altogether leaves traces for sure.
Mm-hmm. And so was your father quite instrumental? Was he encouraging of flight?
Encouraging towards me, or
Yeah, yeah. Did he encourage you to get into hang gliding, paragliding, sailplanes?
no,
No.
not at all. No. We always had to really to ask him that we also could fly his RC planes. he was he was
Come
not
on, Dad.
he was not always happy, and at that time they designed their own RC planes and all these things. So there was a lot of work in there, and so that was sometimes pretty hard fights with between him and us. I have two other brothers, and even when I became 16, that was the time where we could where it was possible to make the license, the sailplane license. He never forced, but we were so often, we spent so much time on the airfield, and I was interested. My two older brothers, they were not at all in this, but they started um, uh, paragliding earlier than I did later on, but they were not interested into flying sailplanes. But for me, it was, it was really cool. And then I started to learn it.
And yeah, it sounds like your first wing was your older brother's 9-cell paraglider in '88. I've seen a few of those. Like you said, it's basically proximity flying in slow motion.
That's exactly how it felt like. Yeah, I was always laughing at them because I think they started something like '86 or something, where the
Yeah.
first Lucky Strike Open comps in Verbier. They flew there, and they flew every single weekend. And when I saw them, I was just, for me, it was a joke. It was just,
Yeah, this is kind of a funny thing, but doesn't one of your reserves have a better glide?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Something,
That's
something like that.
hysterical.
Yes, yeah.
And so you got into but you got into it then. It sounds like it really grabbed hold because you were competing in Worlds and the World Cup in San Andre just 2 years later.
Yeah, I was really in afterwards. When I found out that one could fly in thermals with those gliders at that time. I mean, I modified mine. I made it slower. I trimmed it, and I put some handles on the B riser to slow it down in the thermal, even and there was just A and Bs at that time, like the two liners today. And I was just psyched when I saw people going up on those pieces of fabric, and the simplicity, and yeah, you could just go all over. And that's when I got into it really, really deep.
Yeah, this is going to sound quite ridiculous, but in the States here, we don't have nearly the numbers. You don't see paragliders at the top of every mountain like you do in Europe. And a buddy of mine had gotten into flying in kind of the mid '90s at Tiger Mountain near Seattle, a very famous site here in the States. And he used to beg me to get into it. And I would go out to the LZ and watch. And I just saw all these people floating around on these colorful wings. And I thought that's kind of neat. But I had no idea that you could go anywhere. I just thought they went off the mountain, and most of them did. They just went off and they flew around, and then they landed at the LZ. I just thought it looked really boring. And it wasn't really until I saw my first X Alps that I thought, wait, what? What are these people doing? They're traveling by air? Yeah, I didn't realize it. For a decade, I didn't realize it.
Yeah. At that time when, 88, 89, it really went fast afterwards. Every new glider, it was just plus one glide ratio. So they were really dangerous. The plus in glide ratio was amazing. Each new glider flew so much better that it went so fast. Like 2 years or 3 years later, we were flying 150 kilometers with them.
Yeah, and you broke an early record. I don't have that up in front of me, but in the press release, in the early '90s, didn't you break a record that was 200 and something K? It was just, I wasn't flying back then, but that must have been just an absurd number back at the time.
Yeah, that was at the time. I think the previous world record was 147, something like that, done by Xavier Raymond. We used to compete together. A French, very well-known French pilot. And I have to say that just a few weeks before I did my world record, That Andrew Smith, probably the name sounds
Sure.
familiar to you.
Yeah. Just
It's
lost
a
him.
really old legend. Unfortunately, he already left us. He did the first flight over 200 kilometers just a few weeks before. I think he was also 220 or even more. But unfortunately, he did not documented it. And at that time, you had to.
Mm.
Well, I think it's pretty much still the same today, but you have to take pictures on before takeoff. You need a barograph and all these things. It was a lot more difficult or more complicated than it is today. But yeah, I was the rock star at that time.
Yeah, I was gonna. You're. I mean, I see this rock star that in that era. I mean, I recently talked to Robbie Whittle, and that show will be out here pretty soon. And just the parties just sounded like a very different. You go to a World Cup these days, they're pretty serious.
Oh gosh, I tell you, you won't believe it, Gavin. But I mean, during the Worlds in San Andre, '91, I think we were twice. We came back at 4 o'clock in the morning from Dinia. We had such a good time there, and a year later on, during the European Championship in Slovenia, I made it one day directly from the nightclub to the to the breakfast, and then right into the microbus to drive up to takeoff. It was crazy, really
So
crazy.
when you write that these are the flashy full body preservatives.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Just Richard Gallon, all these guys, Andy Hediger, Robbie Whittle, all,
Yeah.
all these people. That was really. It wasn't. It was serious, but it wasn't as no, it was far away compared to the professionality from today. Today, that's not wouldn't be a good idea anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, you had a lot of success in the next few years. There was the Europeans and World Cups, and that must have been an exciting time. Everybody's flying prototypes, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that was that time.
It's scary to think of going straight from the bar to the hill and on those gliders. They're a little different.
Well, maybe it made
Yeah, maybe you're more
it
relaxed.
made it easier sometimes.
Yeah, more relaxed.
Exactly. Yeah.
um, then it gets a little darker after that. It had some downsides. Tell me about you had a couple of really close calls.
Yeah, I had one just before the Worlds in Verbier. That was during the the real good times. But I had a near death experience just I think 2 months before the Worlds in Verbier. I visited a flight school just next around the corner, and I flew over the lake and did some maneuvers with my glider. I flew 2 months later on during the Worlds, and just nothing serious, just a few collapses, and I just got this cravat, small little cravat, and that was at that time, it was kind of new. We knew it can happen, but we didn't knew exactly what to do afterwards, and
Mm.
and um, I spiraled down with like 3.5, 4 meters per second. It was really nothing serious, but I could not hold it to fly straight back to the LZ. And you know, when I checked the sink rate, I thought, I'm not gonna throw the reserve because I'm gonna land into the water. So it's gonna be I can stall it just before and land pretty safe. But what I completely um, didn't had on my radar is that when I was in the water, I started to swim, And I thought, well, my friends are around. There was the instructor with his beginners. He was on the hill, and there were other pilots around, but nobody saw me. So I was there in the air, maybe 100 meters away from the shore, and after 7 or 10 minutes, I found myself like in a forest jacket. I couldn't move my legs anymore, my feet,
Jesus.
everything. I was just like tangled and in the water, I don't know, like a sausage. There, I could not do anything anymore, and it was an experience. I gave up. I went under the water, and there was this fisherman sitting on his balcony having lunch, and he saw me, and he came and pulled me off the water. So that was one. But at that time, I could easily put this away. Don't know how, but
You mean mentally put it away? It didn't bother
mentally
you?
put it away. Yeah, I was like, I didn't sleep that well the next few nights. But when I went to Verbier, I was ready again, no fear, you know. And
Did you
but
have any kind of Urs, when you gave up and kind of went under the water? Was there any kind of that I had a somewhat similar incident kayaking down in Mexico a whole bunch of years ago, where it was beyond the panic stage. I'd been underwater so long and I'd swallowed so much water that it was like, okay, well that's it. I'm dead, and it was incredibly calm for a little while. It
yeah,
but then there was this voice in the back of my head that, well, wait a minute, you got to do something. And can you talk more about? Was there any kind of okay, well that's it. I guess that's it for me.
yeah. The thing was, I was really at the beginning. I was very relaxed because I thought I can swim. I'm not far away from the shore, so let's swim to the shore. And then when you know, every minute started to get worse, and when I realized that no one will come and help me, then I started to panic. I started to panic so much, I started to shout, to cry, to whistle, and until I got completely powerless.
Mm.
And then the same happened to me, like you just described it. I mean, I was fighting until I couldn't. I had no power anymore. Then um, there was this relaxing feeling coming back. I was just like, wow, I really felt no fear anymore. I was completely distressed, and I saw this light too. I heard music, and I remember I had the um, the thoughts that this is it. It's over. I really finished at that time, at that moment, with my life.
Wow. Yeah, so keep going. You said it. You said that it didn't really, but then he saved you,
Yeah,
and it didn't really change. Did it change your approach?
yeah. Then at the Worlds, I was in the leading gaggle on the first day when we flew back to Verbier, um, and I had in the last big thermal, just like maybe 8 kilometers away from the Alzey up there in Verbier, I had in the lee side collapse again with the same glider. Same like 2 months before, a little cravat on the outer wingtip. It went into a deep spiral, and I knew I have to throw my reserve now, and I threw it. And when it was open 2 seconds later, I hit the wall. I landed in a steep, rocky wall on um, uh, grassy ledge, and I was not hurt at all. I was very lucky, And then even that was not such a big problem for me. I flew the next day again, and I catched from. I think I was at the first day. It was over the position 105 or 7, and the second last day I was back under the first 10. I messed up the last task then, but I just went all or nothing. But really, what you just said before, in during the millennium change at the beginning, I split with my wife. We were together for 7 years. We had a 2.5-year-old daughter, and that was it was so tough for me. That time, and the years that followed later on, because we were in a difficult situation. We were, all that kind of stuff, fighting to see the kid, and that pulled me really down, and that brought me completely to another lifestyle. I was on the search for answers for this, because before, as I said, rock stars, and we went from event to event. We were, I was successful. I was successful in business. At the same time, also, my business did not run well. Everything came together, So, new situation, and I then found out that best for me was when I went out into nature. I was whenever it was possible, I went out. I went for hikes. I went into the mountains here around the place where I live. I was spending hours in the forests around. I went on tours, hiking, climbing mountains, and I got this experience with nature, which gave me a lot. I could fill up my batteries. I could find answers on my questions. I did even hug trees and stuff. I went into that direction, and it was really the only thing which brought me back on track after 3-4 years. Until it gets really to normal life again, if I can say it like that.
Was this period marked by any kind of clinical depression? Was it was it the kind of thing, it's just hard to get out of bed? I think there's a lot of pilots that seem to suffer, and maybe this is just society at large, but it seems that this is really an ill with our family, with our community. And I think it's the adrenaline, the risk, the flying takes people that can be kind of manic out of that. But when you're not, you suffer.
Yeah, I mean, looking back to that time, I think there was this break, and the lack of seeing our kid, and the fights, which happens during those kind of things, is one thing. And I think on the other side, it was kind of I think I was close, or I was in a burnout. It was close, or I was in a burnout, and my luck was really that I had the chance to go out, to go into nature and calm down. And I was not in a therapy or something like that, but I had good friends, good friends around, flying friends, where I could talk, and that was really important for me.
What was the reason during this period that you didn't fly? Did you just not feel like you had the right headspace for it, or was it just the burnout? You just didn't want to, after these accidents, and you mentioned in your write up, obviously there was other accidents too. You lost good friends.
Yeah,
Was it just?
there was just no desire anymore.
Mm,
I had there was actually nothing. I was really I could get hooked into it again. I was just in the I think I was in the survival mode,
sure.
and that took enough energy. So no energy for something else.
Mm. And so this period was how long? What?
Yeah, it took me 2 years, at least 2 3 years. Um, and then I started. I really made some good experiences with meditation, shamanism, all this kind of. I practiced all these things a little bit at that time, and I also went on a trip. My At that time, I really had a strong feeling for being alone for a longer period, um, hiking through a country where I don't speak the local language, where I don't know everybody, and that was a real good adventure for me. Really, that was one of my best experiences I've ever did when
Yeah,
I
you
went to
went through
Mongolia.
in Mongolia, yeah, and a time that was kind of before the big mining boom, as I understand it. It must have, I mean, I think it's still a very special place, but that would be a good place to heal. It seems like it's just there's nothing but nature.
Yeah, exactly.
Was the work you did with the shamans and that community, was that in were you experimenting at all with psychedelics?
No, not at the beginning. I did that
Okay.
later,
Yeah,
when I was stable again.
right, right,
Yeah, yeah,
right,
yeah. I
right.
did some. I did some later on, even the last few years. I did it twice. The
Mm,
ayahuasca rituals. That was really also a good experience. But no, that was everything natural, natural experiences. It was really um, without all this kind of stuff. Yeah, singing, dancing, meditation. Um, it works too.
uh,
Yeah.
is meditation now really a part of your kind of daily life?
No,
Okay.
or at least not when under aware or consciously.
Mm,
I'm the kind of guy. I don't like too much noise around me.
mm,
I prefer the silence. Even when I was a kid, when I was 13, 14 years old, quite often I did ski tours, hiking up with
mm-hmm.
skins underneath, to mountains. And I felt most comfortable when I did this by my own. I
Yeah.
need, I need my islands of silence, so from time to time.
Mm,
So I think that's where I can um, you know refill my
yeah.
my tank.
So tell me about kind of coming back to flight. It sounds like in 2008 you came back to it. What was that? What was the impetus there? Was it just the curiosity came back, the desire came back?
Yeah, I really felt good, and I had some friends flying in XC still. It I didn't flew that much XC when I was active pilot. I was more involved into competitions. The world record was just I gave it a try, but you know at at that time I can't remember when the the GPS instruments came into the game. The documentation of cross-country flying, loading up your track the same day or the next day, having a result right away on the internet. That brought me back in 2008 or something, and it was so fascinating for me because before, the last XC flights we did for the Swiss Cross Country Cup, you had to declare the flight before takeoff. You had to take a picture of yourself with the flight declaration. You had to take pictures of the turn points, of the landing place. You had to have a guy signing you that you have landed there. It was so complicated. And then all of a sudden, this freedom. And I was in this, nature, shamanic type of deal. I was right in there, and it gave me so much freedom in the air. I was playing with my intuition, and I could follow my belly feeling, and it was so much different to me that I just fall in love. It was just like it was almost like the first flights we did. We were just blasted.
It's interesting that you had quite a different experience than when I talked to Robbie. The reason I mean, he still flies, but the reason he really kind of quit the sport in a sense, certainly the competition end, was actually the advent of all the instrumentation. He recalls that how pure it was to just go by your gut and intuition and feel it all. And now you've got instruments that tell you can make goal and the alarm goes off and you go on. So it's become much more, your flight deck is a lot more busy, and he didn't like that.
Yeah, no, not for me. For me, um, it got even better. I think because I use for sure I use the instrument. I use the FAI calculator because I wanna fly a big triangle, an FAI triangle. That's a great help. I had it in 2011 already. I got in contact with Navitor. They had no instruments for paragliders, so I knew they have instruments for sailplane pilots, and a friend of mine showed me how it works, and um, that was great. And um, I used the instrument as before for Vario, and most of the time just the sound. I don't look at the instrument, and I use it for sure. The real own distraction I would say right now for me is airspace restrictions. This is really a big. This is pain in the ass, especially in Switzerland, the place where we fly. You really have to be careful with that. But all the rest, for me, it's much more um, working with my awareness, subconscious, with my belly feeling. I have much more time and room to follow my intuition as it was before, because before you had always to concentrate. I need to go to that turn point. I have to do it. If I don't do it, I screw up the whole flight, because if you didn't make the turn point, that was it. Um, and now you can play. You can play. Okay there. Let's fly another 2Ks. No, it's still feeling great. My power animals tell me, go, keep on going. This is a good day, and I think I have much more freedom compared to the time before. For sure, maybe in the competitions it got much more technique, and I think if you don't know your instrument and all the settings, you probably will never win a task. That became very important.
Tell me about your power animals and spirit helpers. This sounds fascinating. And certainly something I'm familiar with in theory, but I don't know. I've never explored this spiritual side obviously enough. This sounds fascinating. Can you give us some more background on that and
Yeah.
how you utilize these to fly so well?
Yeah, they are just, for me, they are just helpers, and they just make my flying life easier. It's like friends flying with you, and um, uh, if you do a shamanic journey into the underworld, you that's where you try to find a spiritual helper. Most of the time, those are animals, power animals, and then you work with them, you travel with them, especially for during shamanic journeys. But they can help you um, also here in our life during this time up here. And I talk to them like friends. And a typical flying day for me looks like I'm going to a takeoff place. I already prepared the flight. I know pretty much more or less what I'm trying to fly on that day. When I'm on takeoff, I try to find a place where I have a little bit um, privacy, not too many people around. Um, I need that. That's very important for me. I'm always most of the time I go with friends, but we go somewhere else, not where another 50 pilots are uh, you know sitting around and asking questions and all these things. So then um, before takeoff, I always visualize my flight in my mind's eye, and I also ask for this plan to come true. So I'm more the visual type of guy. So I see exactly the flights I want to do today. So I ask um, for that. So I ask my power animals. I ask them. Um, I do a small protection exercise. I always do this also before I do a reserve parachute test above ground. I, I do a kind of a protection exercise for me and for my soul. And then when I take off,
Before you
yeah,
move on, the protection exercise, can you give us some details? What does that look like? And then also give us some details on the visualization. Is that, you're literally seeing yourself climb up, or is it more you're just visualizing, okay, I'm starting here and I'm going to get there, and kind of work down through your flight plan?
okay. The exercise I do before such a flight or before a test flight is just an exercise I prepared for my own. So I ask for the protection of divine omnipotence and my spiritual self rule. I just wanna try to stay all the time my own, not to rule by someone else or whatever. I wanna be by my own, and I also always say thank you to the elements that they protect me, and I wish that the flight will come true. All these kind of things. Is that
Ah,
okay for the first part?
yeah, no, that's beautiful. I love it.
Then the second part is by visualizing my flight. It's I used to ski race when I was younger. I grew up in a ski area, ski
Mhm.
resort. So what we learned there is that just before you start your ski race, you gotta have to know exactly where the gates are. You gotta have to know the line you wanna ski down.
Sure.
And I do exactly the same for my flight. I know today is a good day. And my plan is, let's say, an FAI triangle for 250 kilometers. I always try to stay realistic, you know. For sure, I push always a little bit. I want to fly longer, but I try to stay realistic. And believe me, Gavin, the last 4 or 5 years, I probably messed up 2 flights, but all other flights, they were like 5 or 10% less, or 5 or 10% more.
Than what you planned.
What I planned.
That's
I
amazing. And
it's really amazing. And then I just sit there and I visualize my flight. You know, the I know the places now. I don't have time to travel far away. I mean, I do four or five cross country flights a year, so I go to places. I know Switzerland now very well from the air, so I know the key points, the key places. And you know, I just try to see where I'm going to fly over the main ridge, where I will switch the valley side and all these things. And I see me flying there. So for me, you know, what I've learned in the years before is that, or what I learn every day is that the my energy follows my consciousness. And by doing this, I really put positive thoughts, positive energy in all this. I do much more. I also practice this then in flight, during the flight. You know, when I work with the power animals, and it really helps me to keep me always in a good mood. You know, I'm never, even if I have um, you know, what we call if we get stuck on a construction site. Don't know the word in English. You know, if you if you can't move for half an hour, or you don't climb up,
yeah, you get stuck.
you
Yeah.
get stuck, exactly. Um, then I call my power animals, or I sing, you know, or I just do something, and I'm I'm never pissed, you know, when I'm in such a situation, because um, I stay positive. And this is, I don't know if it really helps, but for me it works. You know, it keeps me always in a good mood.
I mean, I think optimism is so key, and it sounds like you've created methods that just keep you very optimistic
Yeah,
during the flight.
you know, I think, you know, it works for me. Everybody might have his own techniques. I mean, if you talk to Thomas Troilot, he might have another plan for you, or you know. So, but it's really interesting, and I really love this about cross country flying, because I can live my intuition, and that's so great.
It sounds like you've also created a nice system for really being present in what you're doing. I mean, I think the often, when we look back at accidents, kind of with 2020 hindsight, it often accidents often happen to folks who are dealing with something else in their life. They're not really there. They're like you said, they're dealing with an ex or a spouse, or the fight they had that morning, or a bill, or finance, or just something is bothering them in their life. And that when you make one of those kind of obvious human mistakes, like forget to clip in or something because you're just distracted, you're not really there. I guess in a sense, when you only have time to have 4 or 5 or 6 cross country flights a year, you're going to put everything you can into it. but
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah. I also think, you know, that was probably the reason why I was not flying that much in the early millennium years. You know, when I was really in a very bad mental situation, and I'm sure that's where accidents just happens. You know.
Urs, you've won the Swiss Cup. You get to keep it now. You've won it so many times, as I understand it. Since 2013, do I have that right? You've won it 5 times, always on an ENB. Just tell the folks who don't know what it is, because I'm actually not very clear what it is. What is the Swiss Cup, and how does it? How do you win it?
We have here in Switzerland the Swiss cross country competition. So you guys all know the X contest, I think.
Sure. Yep.
Are you using it as well?
Yeah, and we is this like a league thing? You know, it's X contest for the country, so I think it's your 5 or 6 best scores over the season.
Exactly. So
Okay.
we have our ranking in Switzerland for that, and we have different categories in Switzerland, and it starts on the it used to be the fun and safety category. That was everything up to and included ENB. And then you have the category sport that includes ENC gliders. And then you have the open category where you can fly open class gliders. There is also the serial class glider categories is in there. So I flew from these 5 years where I was winning that trophy. I flew 4 years. I flew in the ENB, ENA, and ENB category, but I won in the standard category all the time. 1 year I flew with a ENC glider, and I also won the sport category.
I mean, and you're not in Uruguay, buddy. You're in Switzerland. Arguably the best pilots in the world. That's just incredible. And I'm not trying to make you red in the face right now, but to only fly 4 or 5 or 6 times a year for XC, I mean, I realize you're doing all the testing, so you're flying quite a bit, but to go big, you're only doing that a few times a year, and to win the Swiss, that's remarkable. And a shout out to, well, let's talk about the wing choice, and because you're mostly flying the Mentor, is that correct?
Yes.
And that's that's very inspiring that you're pulling off these big triangles on an ENB.
Yeah, on the good days, I mean, that's my advantage. Being I run the business, so I can leave. I can leave, and there is a really good day inside. So that's for sure an advantage. If the conditions are good, you can do very well under an ENB glider here in the Alps. There are some disadvantages on big valley crossings, or if you fly a long time with the wind. There's a big disadvantage on our. I call my glider. It's a pony. It's not. It's not a racehorse. I call it a pony. The good thing also is that I can fly on a good day. We fly 11 hours or even 11 and a half hours. And under an two-liner, you need to be a very, very good pilot to being able to fly that long.
Yeah,
and that was that was happen. I mean, back in 2013 or 2014, I don't remember exactly. I even won the open class with in the Swiss ranking.
I saw
a bit.
that. Yeah, you won
Yeah,
everything that year on an EMB.
and since then, finally, those guys, that was a call. I mean, those guys, they they did really great flights. The hot shots in Switzerland. We have so many good pilots, and we have so many good pilots flying, working as a test pilot, and they are not afraid under those gliders, and they can fly. They can fly 11 hours too. But they landed like 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon,
Mm.
where I was still flying another 2.5 hours. So now as I said, it was a wake up call, and now they dominate us for sure. The cross country flying got very very popular uh, uh, during the last few years. We built a cross country league in Switzerland. That was part of Martin Schell's idea, to bring um, us as cross country pilots together with the competition pilots. And now this is a big cake now, and it's really a great source of exchanging experience and inspiring. And now the young guys, they are hot, they're pushing, and now we see really some excellent flights with open class gliders now here in Switzerland. We have no chance at all anymore to get close to them. I mean, we're still like 10% behind them. Still good, but yeah. I mean, I would love to fly such a wing. I mean, those are beauties, but it's probably for my next reincarnation, not now.
I did want to ask you about that. Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that because, given your SIV experience, given your lifetime of experience and your comp experience, it must be awfully tempting. You're not that old, Urs. I'm just behind you.
Okay. So you think I should still?
No,
I
I'm
should still
actually it's actually I find
or something.
no, but I mean, sure, but but I just mean it's I mean I think it's got to be tempting, but at the same time it's also very inspiring that you're doing this on what you are. Obviously that's you've certainly found the sweet spot, but it's got to be tempting.
Whatever I do, my philosophy is it has to make fun. I really enjoy still flying. What I feel like now, when a few years ago I was able to fly 2 times in a row. I mean, one day after the other for 11 and a half hours. I did some really great flights, but now this is not what I'm looking for anymore. I'm just dead after an 11 hour flight. But so far, flying is still I'm still totally dialed in. And last year, I started with kite surfing. There is this guy called Tony Bender. He told me 3 or 4 years ago, Urs, you gotta have to try foiling. He said it's just unbelievable feeling. And I live next to a lake, and last year when this bloody lockdown started over here. So I was sitting in front of our house, and all of a sudden I saw this foil kiters out there. It's a small lake, thermal conditions, not that strong winds, but they were having so much fun. And then I knew this is the call. And then I just a few weeks later I went shopping. I just bought a board. I bought a harness, and I called some friends, and then I bought a kite, and we went to France. As soon as the lockdown was over, we traveled to France, to Hyères, beautiful place to stay, to hike also. And I was down there with my wife, and I just started a few lessons how to kite surf on just a normal board, and I was just dialed in right away. This was like, wow, this is cool, and yeah, this is something new. So let's see what will happen in the near future.
Yeah, learning is where it's at, isn't it? And learning anything new is so exciting.
Yeah.
Urs, I want to be mindful of your time. We're getting up close to our hard out here. So if you don't mind, I'd love to end on just a few kind of rapid fire questions that I got. We did a survey a few months ago on just, how to make the podcast better and tapping into our listeners. And they provided a bunch of fun questions. So I just wanted to give you a few of these. You can answer them shortly or in long form, whatever you prefer. But what was the biggest aha moment you've had with paragliding? The question is in the last year, but I'll just make that your whole career. Was there ever a moment where it was something just really clicked when you look back?
Yeah, I think we were already talking in this interview about it when the place where I grew up. I knew from my experience as a sailplane pilot that where the thermals were, and the glider started to perform so good that it was we were able to fly in the thermals. So I just hiked up the mountain. I launched right into the thermal, and that was yes, this is it. This is it, and I got connected forever.
Oh, so you kind of knew it was going to happen from your experience in sailplanes. Okay, I'm going to fly over there, and this is going to work, and it did.
Yeah,
That's pretty
exactly.
exciting. What's the funniest thing you've seen when flying, ever?
The funniest thing, that was flying on a sailplane, and when we began to fly, we were not allowed to leave the airfield for about a radius of 50 kilometers. And, we got bored after a while. There was a young guy flying together with me. So we were chasing hikers on the in the mountains. We were just flying over the ridges pretty fast, and I spotted a couple. They were naked and they were having fun.
Did you do some flybys? Do some Tom Cruise flybys?
Sure. I was young, man.
That's exciting. Yeah, this is back before the porn is just proliferated all over the internet. It's like having a magazine played out in front of you, a little Playboy on the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. Last one. If you could only make one more flight, where would you go? Where would it be?
I would just follow my intuition. It could be just here around the house, next mountain. I think if it's the last flight, for me, it can happen wherever. It's
doesn't matter.
Every flight is a beauty.
I love it. Fantastic place to end. Urs, what a pleasure. That was a real joy. Thank you so much for sharing your time and giving us a little window into your remarkable life.
Thanks, Kevin, and all the best to you for the X-Alps race this year. And watch out, maybe I come and visit you somewhere in Switzerland.
Oh, that would be great. I'd love
I'll
it.
I'll lend you one of my power animal.
That would be fantastic. I need all the help I can get getting through Kriegel's backyard. Yeah, so
Yes.
that would be welcomed. Thanks, Urs.
Yeah, you're welcome. Bye-bye, Gavin. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye. If you find the Cloud-Based Mayhem valuable, you can support it in a lot of different ways. You can give us a rating on iTunes or Stitcher, or however you get your podcast. That goes a long ways and helps spread the word. You can blog about it on your own website or share it on social media. You can talk about it on the way up to launch with your pilot friends. I know a lot of interesting conversations have happened that way. And of course, you can support us financially. This show does take a lot of time, a lot of editing, a lot of storage and music and all kinds of behind the scenes cost. So if you can support us financially, all we've ever asked for is $1 a show. And you can do that through a one-time donation through PayPal, or you can set up a subscription service that charges you for each show that comes out. We put a new show out every 2 weeks. So, for example, if you did $1 a show and every 2 weeks, it'd be about $25 a year. So way cheaper than a magazine subscription, and it makes all of this possible. I do not want to fund this show with advertising or sponsors. We get asked about that pretty frequently, but for a whole bunch of different reasons, which I've said many times on the show, I don't want to do that. I don't like having that stuff at the front of the show. And I also want you to know that these are authentic conversations with real people, and these are just our opinions, but our opinions are not being skewed by sponsors or advertising dollars. I think that's a pretty toxic business model. So I hope you dig that. You can support us. If you go to cloudbasedmayhem.com, you can find the places to support. You can do it through patreon.com/cloudbasedmayhem. If you want a recurring subscription, you can also do that directly through the website. We've tried to make it really easy, and that will give you access to all the bonus material, little video casts that we do and extra little nuggets that we find in conversations that don't make it into the main show, but we feel like you should hear. We don't put any of that behind a paywall. If you can't afford to support us, then just let me know and I'll set you up with an account. Of course, that'll be lifetime, and hopefully you're being in a position someday to be able to support us. But you'll find all that on the website. All of you who have supported us or even joined our newsletter or bought Cloud-Based Mayhem merchandise, t-shirts or hats or anything, you should be all set up. You should have an account. You should be able to access all that bonus material now. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate your support, and we'll see you on the next show. Thank you.